Okay, good afternoon. It is Tuesday, September 12th, and it is 1:03 p.m. in the afternoon. We are here at a press conference to update citizens on the after actions involved in Hurricane Irma. We have a number of speakers today, and we're going to begin with John Shaw, who's the Alachua County Emergency Manager. John?
Thank you, Mark. We began mobilizing on Tuesday in response to Hurricane Irma, and I'm really pleased with the response, the preparation, the coordination of the dozens of agencies involved in this operation. We have now had 24/7 operations running for well over 4 days, and I think that the silver lining in all this is that we knew Hurricane Irma was coming. We had time to prepare, to coordinate, and to plan for a successful operation. This is my first hurricane here in Alachua County as the Emergency Management Director, and truly, I couldn't be any prouder. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, John. And now I'd like to introduce the Alachua County Fire Rescue Chief, Bill Northcutt. Bill?
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, as John pointed out, we did have an opportunity to plan for this event, thank goodness. We were able to staff up units both in the county and the city, fire rescue really countywide, to staff up and be prepared to respond to the needs of the community, especially as we start having widespread damage, potential injuries. We do ask that everyone in the community be diligent. We still have a lot of wires down throughout the county, a lot of power outages. Do not assume any of those trees down or any wires that you see are not electrified. So we do encourage you to stay safe. You will continue to see fire rescue staff out in the neighborhoods. We continue to look for dangers and buildings that have got damage and compromise. We will do what we can to minimize the continued internal damage to those structures. So, but do be diligent and continue to be safe. But with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our Alachua County Sheriff, Sadie Darnell.
Thank you, Mark, and good afternoon, everyone. I first want to thank Governor Rick Scott for his incredible leadership across the state of Florida. He indicated very early on, as we had this catastrophic event coming toward all of our counties in Florida, that Florida was going to be strong, that we were going to be harmed, but we were not going to be broken, and that has been true. I also want to give a great shout out to Alachua County Chair Ken Cornell. He has had unwavering leadership and level-headedness and energy and positiveness as we have seen unprecedented levels of cooperation. I would be remiss if I didn't also give extreme kudos to Alachua County Emergency Manager John Shaw. He has been probably the calmest person in the room throughout this event as the days have gone by, and we all have lost track of the days. But he is a welcome asset to Alachua County and has demonstrated his abilities to the highest level. I am also extremely proud of the men and women at the Alachua County Sheriff's Office. Many of you know that we announced that we went to an Alpha Bravo situation. That means all hands on deck. People that normally work in our warrants area, our civil area, in court security, school resource deputies, drug task force, all the areas that are part of a normal day at our agency were redirected and deployed at the patrol level. I was honored to be able to brief them on the days when they went out into the storm at its height at 0600 in the morning and 1800 that evening. They were, of course, had a great deal of anxiety and fear for their families, but they were determined and high level of commitment to this county and continue to serve us. Just to give you an example, on one day, we normally have about 1,100 calls per day. During the height of the storm, we had almost double that at 2,324 calls for service. Yesterday, we had a height of almost 400 hazardous conditions that deputies responded to. Over 22 of those were flooding, and 50 of those were wires down. One day later, currently, we now have reduced those 100 level number of hazardous conditions to now we are staffing at 61, not staffing, but have handled 61 total hazardous condition, 33 trees down, 22 incidents of wire down, and 6 flooding. One significant flooding is in the Fairbanks area where it is not still water, it is fast-moving water. We have 10 deputies currently committed to escorting 50 to 60 residents of that area walking through the water because it cannot be accessed any other way. So there are still severe conditions, and as Chief Northcutt mentioned, don't let your guard down. There are still hazardous conditions. For those of us who have had power restored or have had their roadways cleared, count your blessings, but recognize that a lot of work went into this point. I also want to recognize the leadership at the various municipalities throughout our county. Without exception, everyone has extended the recognition of this being a priority incident. I've never seen a response in all these areas of need so quickly. The jail, I want to give a quick update from our county jail because that had to maintain operations. That's a mandatory operational area. Our CERT team members at the jail not only had inmates assisting with sandbags prior to the storm, but after the storm they helped relieve clogged drainage, tree limbs from around the jail. First appearance, which is a statutory requirement, although it was suspended Monday by the chief judge, occurred again this morning on schedule. The jail is back on normal operations. The court system should be going to a regular court system tomorrow. During the storm, we sheltered over 100 staff members, and we did have some maintenance issues that were fairly significant but not operational ending. So again, the jail came out of the storm at a much better level than we thought, and again continues the normal operations. I want to close with saying that we also had great coordination in the Emergency Operations Center and ensuring that utility companies were involved. Some of us spoke with leadership of Florida Power and Light, Clay Electric, and Duke Energy, including had some face-to-face meetings with GRU to ensure that where we could reinforce priority need to relieve public safety personnel, that was done. And we've had our chainsaw group out there helping supplement the county public works. Everything, for the most part, has gone without a hitch. We did have some bumps in the road. Those situations were handled behind closed doors and were resolved very quickly. But again, this has been an unprecedented experience to be a part of, very impressive and very team building. You know, if we had any weaknesses in our partnerships from before, they have been solidly shored up, and we look forward to serving Alachua County in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Darnell. At this point, I'd like to introduce the chairman of the Alachua County Commission, Ken Cornell. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mark. And Alachua County, your leadership, we are obviously here for you. Sheriff, thank you for those kind words. I do have a number of thank yous before I get into just a brief update. First, with Governor Scott and his staff. I have been on the phone with his staff, I think, every day since prior to the storm, and they have been tremendous in their response. When we've needed fuel, fuel has arrived. When we've needed additional things, it has arrived, and we still have many needs, and we will continue to speak to the governor's office. To Congressman Yoho's office, who has been equally responsive, and Senator Nelson. Those two folks obviously care a lot about Alachua County, and they have been in touch with us directly. To our municipalities, the City of Gainesville, Mayor Poe, the General Manager, Manager Belarski, and all of the municipalities, from all of the mayors I've talked to pretty much on a daily basis. Waldo, Alachua, Mayor Cooper, High Springs, Newberry, Mayor Marlowe, La Crosse, Hawthorne, Mayor Surnsey, Micanopy, Archer, Mayor Harris. We are in constant communication. We have a process. The EOC has a process where you put in requests, and those requests are getting filled, but we're also talking on the phone when we need to talk on the phone. To our public safety personnel, law enforcement and fire rescue, an unbelievable coordination and response during the storm between ASO and GPD. Obviously, we also have UPD, Santa Fe Police Department, the City of Alachua Police Department, who has been coordinated through the sheriff at I believe, an unprecedented level. The Alachua County School Board. Can't say enough about the school board. The school board really got engaged heavily prior to the storm, realizing that this was a storm that we had never experienced. I've been told in previous hurricanes that we have sheltered 2 to 3 shelters for the entire county. The school board really leaned in, and we initially activated 12 to 14 at the state's request, believing that we would be a refuge for many folks to our south. And then that quickly turned into the fact that no, this storm was coming to us. And so we went from 14 to 18 in a matter of hours. The school board staffed that up and fulfilled those needs. As we were seeing folks being sheltered, one thing we realized was that if people had pets, they were coming to be sheltered. And if they couldn't bring their pets, they wouldn't come. And so the school board recognized that and immediately, when the need arose, opened up East Side High School. I believe we had over 50 to 60 pets. One of the stories which touched my heart was 9 o'clock on the evening of the storm. A lady from Sarasota checked in the East Side, and this was reported to me by your city commissioner, Commissioner Hayes Santos, said that a lady had just gotten there. She had 10 pets in her car. She had no place to go. She arrived at East Side. She was safe. Her animals are safe, and she has since left. And so to the school board, we are doing everything we can to make sure that it is as clean or cleaner than it was when we got it. I know the school has announced that there will be no school tomorrow. I know there have been some issues related to getting some power back up at some schools. We're working through those issues, and we are here to make sure that Alachua County schools are open as soon as possible. Back to public safety. The National Guard, we need to thank them. They came in, provided necessary assistance, and Santa Fe College housed them, fed them, and Santa Fe also leaned right in when we called. And so thank you to Santa Fe, Dr. Sasser, and again, I want to thank the University of Florida, Dr. Lane, Dr. Fox, a number of coordination issues, and they will continue in the coming days. And so thank you very much to the University of Florida and Santa Fe. We also had our community, individuals and churches, community leaders leaning in on calls prior to the storm, constantly calling us afterwards, asking how they can help, and they are currently helping, and so thank you for that. Let me give you a quick update on some other information. Road closures. I could start with a list, but instead of doing that, because this may be replayed, what I would ask is that you look to our Facebook and our Alachua County website. It'll be constantly being updated, hopefully on the hour. I know that State Road 26, for example, is closed, and half of Hawthorne Road is closed because I came in from Melrose, and so that I know. But we will be keeping that site updated. If you have information that you don't think we have, what we would ask is that you call in and report to us and continue to help us. We're getting updates not just from calls coming in, but people are sending Facebook messages, and we're trying to get all of that information into the EOC. Debris, with regards to debris, if you will just put that by the road, there will be no size limitations. I know a year ago with Hurricane Matthew, we had some problems with regards to collection of debris. We have hopefully rectified that, have a number of contracts in place, and those efforts will begin in the coming days. And we would just ask that you put it up by the side of the road, and we'll take care of it. Trash and recycling collections will be delayed by 1 day. So if today is your day, tomorrow will be your day. I was a little shocked at that. I thought it was going to be a couple of days, but when I came in today, they said, just 1 day, Commissioner. So I said, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Shelter. So I spoke briefly about our Herculean effort of shelters. It has been an equally Herculean effort to then get them closed and get people back in their homes. We have 2 shelters that are currently open, the special needs shelter at the senior center, and it'll stay open as long as it needs to stay open for those citizens that have special needs. What we're dealing with now is making sure that their homes have power, that they are okay to be received back to where they came. So we are dealing with that on an individual basis. So the senior center will remain open. Thank you to the City of Gainesville. We have now opened up the Martin Luther King Center off 8th Avenue, which is receiving the remaining folks from the shelters that we have consolidated into. Last count I got was we had about 130 people there currently, and it is also pet friendly. And so we really appreciate the City of Gainesville in working through some of those issues yesterday to help us get that ready and operational. Flooding. We know what's happening. In fact, this is probably the biggest surprise. This was not supposed to be a rain event. This was supposed to be a wind event and fly right through. When the path took a turn and some of that Gulf water stayed in Alachua County and just north of Alachua County, we are seeing flooding, unanticipated flooding, and we are aware of that. We know where it's happening. We are responding as quickly as we can with pumps. We have requested additional pumps from the state. If you are in a neighborhood that has flooding, report that to us. Let us know where that is so that we can send out crews, assess it, and make sure that we are addressing those needs. With regards to your safety, please stay out of standing water of all water bodies. The biggest concern for us once the storm passed and we knew people were safe was that oftentimes with these events, people get injured after the events. They get electrocuted in water, or they stand in their garage with a generator running, not realizing that there's carbon monoxide. And so, and they're fatigued. People are tired. Certainly, I know we're all tired. I know all of you covering us certainly are tired. So be aware of that. Do not be afraid to ask for help from your neighbors and certainly from your government. Power outages. That's the big other challenge that we're dealing with now. Thank goodness we have the incredible local providers that we have, but we have 5 utilities that are currently reporting outages of over 20,000, I believe. And so they are working through trying to make sure that first our emergency needs are met, our public needs are met, and certainly our residents' needs are met. And I know all of your utilities are working very, very hard on that. This is another area where we requested resources from the state. Many of those assets were pre-positioned. When the storm took a little turn, though, some of those pre-positioning turned into now they need help. And so the state is helping us coordinate that, and we are doing the best we can with that and continue to do the best we can. It's an interesting situation. You know, many folks have power, have access to facilities, and other folks are without power and really can't even get out of their neighborhoods. And so we are dealing with both sides of this, and we would ask that you continue to have patience with us, but also let us know what you need. Let us know what you need so that we can help you. For those folks that are in a great situation, we've seen unprecedented, how can we help? How can we volunteer? How can we contribute? So I want to thank the citizens of Alachua County. It's exactly what I expected. Okay, school board, UF. Oh, collections. Rural collections are closed currently. All county offices will be resumed tomorrow, except for our rural collection centers, and we'll get those up as quickly as we can. And so with that, again, I just want to thank all the agencies, all the citizens of Alachua County for making us all proud. Okay, so I guess we're going to do some questions now. And so, Mark, come on up, and if we can have John share.
Mark, I've got a brief update about court functions, if I may.
Yes.
I just received information from court administration that all court functions will continue as scheduled Wednesday, tomorrow, in Alachua County and Union counties. But the court appearances, first appearances for Bradford County, Gilchrist, and Levy counties will be handled as part of Alachua County's first appearance process. While Alachua County has been extremely stressed and strained with the event, we continue to be the go-to agency for situations where other counties need assistance. We're also assisting Putnam County with some of their communication issues, but this is due with a power shortage in those other counties. So Alachua County Court Services is not court service, court administration is being able to handle those needs with the other counties. And so I want to give a shout out to our court administration and our court security deputies that will be assisting others. And I also wanted to mention Chair Cornell has been very supportive in this regard from the standpoint of Alachua County being a host agency or host county for evacuees. And we were very receptive to doing that. It worked out incredibly well. So not only do we in Alachua County need to be proud of how we went from our county limits to the county limits, we also provided a great deal of assistance to hundreds of people from outside of our county for the state of Florida. So a lot to be proud of. We still got a lot of challenges ahead, but we're going to continue to work together, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that update, Chair Darnell. Okay, media, if you have any questions, I'll repeat your question and we'll get someone to answer it.
How long do we think that Alachua County residents will be able to start their lives back to how they last left it a few days ago?
John, why don't you take that one?
That's really dependent upon when we can get the utilities back up and running, the floodwaters, when those can recede. So some areas are going to be able to go back to normal fairly quickly. Others, it may take several days before we're able to see any progress with that.
Yeah, and let me just add, you know, I kind of touched on this. Many folks are fine right now. They have power. They have a refrigerator full of food. And then there's other folks that are still in a recovery mode. So I think that question is as quickly as possible. We're asking employers to be flexible with their employees. You know, some folks were affected a little bit, but many other folks were affected more significantly. And so we're hoping that we can get folks back to normal as quick as possible.
What do we want to tell the people from South Florida that have stayed in our shelters or even up north that have to make a pit stop here? I mean, I had multiple people even ask me at Publix and whatnot if I had gas, that if I'm willing to spare some of my gas for them, because I think there's only like 9 here, gas stations that are open.
Yeah, so I mean, I made a call to the governor's office this morning to request fuel. And Alachua County, that is what we are. We are kind of the last stop before you go north and vice versa. And so we're asking folks locally, conserve fuel as much as you can. But certainly if you need fuel, we're trying to get it to you as quickly as possible. And Alachua County wants to tell the rest of the state that we are here to support them. And they have certainly been supportive to us. Yep, Chair.
The question was the gasoline fuel is a priority and a real concern for not only visitors to our area passing through, but also for our residents. Alachua County deputies who are on duty today and throughout the night, they've been asked to keep an eye out for gas stations that are being fueled up, and so they are calling that in and notifying Sergeant Chris Sims. He is updating our agency Facebook and having that go to, I guess it's tracker.com for gas. What's the email? Tracker.gasbuddy.com. So that's being updated on a regular basis, so please go to that, and law enforcement out in the field are keeping an eye up for those fuel tanks. And as you know, law enforcement has escorted those fuel tanks across the state, and we'll get hopefully some here pretty soon. But that utilities and gasoline right now are the priorities for a majority of folks. But where you are able to go back to normal as possible, that's very healthy for you. It's healthy for your children. And so we all encourage you where you are able to go back to as much normalcy as possible.
Actually, one thing I wanted to point out too in regards to the Alachua County shelters, I think Commissioner Cornell commented on it. We want to make sure folks understand that this was a group effort. The effort was led by county employees and the school board, but there were also volunteers from the Sheriff's Department. There were volunteers from the public, GPD, the National Guard had a presence at our shelters. Citizens were bringing clothing and food. It was a remarkable effort.
Yeah, let me give you an example. So just a quick example on that. We had a need for 50 beds up in Easton. I believe it was Easton. So I called up the mayor of Newberry, Mayor Marlowe, and within an hour and a half, I think they were delivered. East Side had a huge need, and I know Commissioner Hayes Santos, who sheltered at East Side during the night of the storm, put out an all-call for pet supplies, food, and bedding supplies, and within 2 hours, those needs were met at East Side, and this was as we were going into the storm. So, again, Sheriff Darnell mentioned it. You know, we have so many agencies that have worked together that have historically not worked together for any need, because we haven't had a need to have a mayor of Newberry bring bedding to a shelter. But the citizens have delivered, and with that, we are truly thankful. I mean, really thankful. Next question.
Cleveland?
Any reports of looting associated with the storm, possibly people from outside the county coming to try to take advantage of the situation?
So the question was, have there been any reports of looting or any criminal activity? I think I'll go with the sheriff on that one.
Yes, reference looting. As far as I know, we have had no acts of theft. We have had no acts of violence related to the storm. We have had no fatalities related to the storm. We did have one motor vehicle crash fatality, I believe it was Friday or Saturday, that was related to the weather, not to the storm. And so we've been fortunate in that regard. And again, it speaks to our citizens who recognize that law enforcement and public safety has been diverted to high priority needs and have not taken advantage of the situation. The chair and I have had many discussions about curfew needs, and we recognize that that is a huge inconvenience to people, business owners especially. Everybody wants to get back up and running for their economic well-being and again for their wellness from the standpoint of just getting back to normal. So we have seen no need for curfew. We do have concerns about wires being down on some of the roads and people getting out too soon. So we ask people to be very cautious and prudent in that regard. I also want to remind people that when there are traffic lights out at an intersection, you treat it as a four-way stop. Don't go busting through there just because the light is dark. Recognize that that is still a very dangerous situation, and to treat any intersection with lights out as a four-way stop. It's much better to be safe than sorry, and our hospitals, I'm sure, are very challenged, as we all are. So no looting, and we do not want looting. We will take action. We don't have to have a curfew in order to take law enforcement action to arrest people for any thefts or acts of violence or acts of criminal activity. We are out there ever alert. We're going to maintain the Alpha Bravo shift for a bit, and then we will still have extra components even if we have to start decommissioning our Alpha Bravo shifts.
I have a question. A few viewers are concerned about flooding. I know it's not in all areas, but particularly 39th Street and just at the intersection with 75th Street. What's being done? What are some of the initiatives or priorities in terms of resolving flooding?
Yeah, it's a great question. And Robin Lane, the neighborhood of Robin Lane, has got some major flooding that we are working with. Let me bring in our operations manager, Mr. Shaw, and he can give specifics on that.
So right now we've brought in extra pumps. We've requested from the state extra pumps to try to get the water out of those areas, but we can expect to see the waters increase south of the Santa Fe River for at least through tomorrow. We'll find out at 2 p.m. if we'll see them for any additional days as well. But if you are in a low-lying area, please, the mandatory evacuation is still in place.
Yeah, and again, the question was about flooding. So as Mr. Shaw just mentioned, around the Santa Fe River, low-lying areas, mandatory evacuation is still in place. With regards to the pumps that we're bringing in, some of the challenges we've had is where do we pump it to? If they're at the bottom of the watershed, there's really no place to pump it. So we're working through those with Public Works to try to solve those problems and make sure, though, that the citizens have access in and out of their homes. Next question.
Anytime you go through a process like this, there are things you probably learn along the way. What particularly maybe worked well over the last 2 days, and what do you think you learned that can be done differently?
Yeah, so what can be learned? Great question. You know, as much as you prepare, there are always things that come up, and we actually learned that because we were prepared. We were really prepared, and things come up, and so. I guess what I'm most happy, though, about is that as things have come up and we've gotten leadership involved at different agencies, whether that was GRU or the City of Gainesville or Alachua County, the leadership has been incredible. I mean, that was our plan, but this is outside of our plan, and so here's the new plan. And so, you know, one of the things that we kept talking about prior to the event was, you know, we don't have this in the manual. Well, there's no Cat 5 coming straight up the state of Florida in the manual. So we need to create the new manual. And with that regard, you know, Santa Fe, you know, they created a situation where they could house the National Guard. You know, the sheriff was talking about looting. I remember driving home on the evening of the hurricane, and there was a National Guard standing outside of one of the stores. And I called the sheriff, and I said, "Your National Guard is here." And she says, "We are safe, we are ready, we are prepared." And so I guess the point is we've now had an event that we couldn't have planned for. So many things that we have kind of worked through are now going to be put into a post plan so that we will put them into the plan. And it's really about just making sure that all the necessary folks are in the room that need to handle a situation.
Yeah, I'd add to that leadership has been very accessible. Chair Cornell, Sheriff Darnell, Chief Northcutt, Manager Lieberman, everyone has been really accessible. The superintendent has been in the EOC for most of the time that we're here, and part of what was in the plan was pet-friendly shelters. And the superintendent, she opened up their doors. The Easton Archery Center opened up their doors to be able to accept pets, which was outstanding. And that, I don't know how many lives that saved because we were able to house pets in our shelters. I think that was an outstanding effort.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the best example, pet shelter. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Cleveland?
are there any major county facilities that are without power currently?
Any major county facilities without power? No, other than the transfer station and the rural centers. Yeah, the rural collection centers. We've had a number of trees down and some flooding in some of those, and so we're asking those employees to report to the county, and we'll redeploy them until we can get those facilities open.
Question for Sheriff Darnell. Florida just announced that they're going to go ahead and play the football game on Saturday. I'm just curious about your thoughts if by Saturday you guys are going to have enough personnel in place to help stop the game. I know they've been in contact with you.
Yes, this question is about the game coming up this weekend, University of Florida, Go Gators versus Tennessee. We have been in conversation. Major David Clark of Alachua County Sheriff's Office is our go-to guru for game day. He has been in conversation with the University of Florida officials, and yes, we support the game going forward. We recognize that our staff are going to be fatigued, and we're making efforts to get them some rest before the game day, but it's important to our community, it's important to our state, it's important to our looking forward and moving forward. We are going to be down some law enforcement from some other usual support that we get at the University of Florida, but we're making a contingency for the Sheriff's Office to be the go-to agency to provide that effort. We ask citizens, as always, to keep your priorities in check and recognize it's simply a game. And we all need to be at the point of being joyful and good-natured from the standpoint of getting through this major catastrophic storm, and recognize we're back to being able to play sports. That's a good thing. But enjoy it and recognize it as being a blessing and something that we can all pull together in a positive way, and don't add any extra burden on law enforcement, public safety. Stay hydrated so you don't stress our rescue and emergency medical personnel, and basically, just enjoy the day and help us all move through this. But also recognize that we still, as Chair Cornell has said, we still have people that are in dire circumstances, so we don't want to, we are not going to forget those individuals who need assistance, who need help. We are going to continue every effort that we have to make sure and ensure that they get to a level where they are at normalcy again. But game day is going to happen. I support that, and Chair Cornell and I just had a phone conversation with the representative, Dr. Lane at UF, to make sure that everybody knows that ASO is on deck with that. I'm sure fire and EMS is also. It takes a lot of people to make that happen. That's an $80,000, $100,000 event, getting people in and out of our community that has just experienced probably that number and more in and out of our community. So we're geared to go, and we're gonna get it done.
Anything else? Anything else? Okay, we appreciate. Did you have something? Final words? Yeah. The last thing I just wanted to say is, and then I'll turn it over to Mark, because Mark always has to be the last word, which is good. Yeah. So just moving forward, if you please call 311 for information and rumor control. 311 will have a recording with some information. For non-emergency reporting, we're asking that you call 955-1818. 955-1818. Flooding in your yard, something happens, it's not an emergency, but you need to report that to us. Call 955-1818, and then continue to call 911 for emergencies. Please stay tuned to our Facebook, Twitter, and our website. We will be updating that as information comes along to make sure that the public is aware of everything that we know. So with that, Mr. Sexton, thank you.
Okay, just a reminder, it is September 12th. It is now about 1:42 p.m. I wanted to just a brief update. We've had some issues with 955-1818. So it's up and down, but we're working hard to resolve that. But you can still call 311, and you can go to our Facebook page, the Sheriff's Facebook page, the City of Gainesville. Social media is an excellent way to get the most up-to-date information right now, as well as, of course, all of our partners in the media who have done a phenomenal job, I should say, in keeping citizens informed. We had many of you spend the night with us on the night of the hurricane, and we just want to thank our partners in the media. You've been an integral part of this whole effort, and thank you for coming.